felt welcome in Britain. I lived in North Kensington and went to college. However, after a few years I developed a drug habit and started drifting nowhere. In late 2000, I started attending the Muslim Heritage Centre. I gained strength from Islam and my new friends helped me kick my drug habit. Soon after, I left Britain to travel. I had heard that the strict ban on drugs in Afghanistan would provide a safe haven without temptation. I arrived in July 2001. 2 months later, everything changed. I heard the Americans were planning to attack, so I went to Pakistan. But I did not immediately leave for Britain. A big mistake. I stayed for a few months, and while I was there, my passport was stolen. The situation for foreigners started to get very bad, so I finally decided I had to go home. But getting back to England without a passport was difficult. As I had fled from Ethiopia, I couldn't ask them for help, and I had no right to a British passport. So a friend from London said I could use his passport instead. On the 10th of April 2002, I was detained at Karachi airport. I didn't want to get my friend into trouble, so I said I had stolen the passport and gave a false name. That was my last day of freedom. I was held for 3 days, then transferred to a detention centre. On the 20th of April 2002, I was taken to an interrogation centre in Karachi. That is where I met the FBI. I said, I admit that I did give a false name, but I have nothing to do with America, and I do not see what America has to do with me. It is my right to have a lawyer. I will speak only when I have a lawyer present. They told me there were no lawyers, and I could cooperate with them the easy way or the hard way. The cells in Karachi were small, each perhaps 8 by 10 feet. This is where I had my first taste of torture. I was suspended for a week by a leather strap and could just touch the ground with my toes. I soiled myself because they only lowered me twice a day. I was given some rice and beans every second day. I just thought it would end. FBI agents came in for morning interrogations. They seemed to think that because I had lived in the US for a short while when I was 14, that I was planning to commit some crime on American soil. The British talked to me in Pakistan. They said they were from MI6. They checked out my story and they said they knew I was a nobody, but it looked like I was going to get tortured by the Arabs. They said they'd see what they can do with the Americans and let me know what was going to happen. They never came back. I have struggled with how I came to mean such a lot to them. I have picked up that there was another Brit who had been tortured and was telling all kinds of things. This may have been someone I met who started putting my name in things. I don't know. I don't know who was saying all this. I wish I did. I refused to talk until I had a lawyer. Then I was turned over to the Americans. The US soldiers who took me, 6 or 7 of them, they were dressed in black with black masks. They stripped me naked, took photos, put fingers up my anus. They put diapers under my pants and dressed me in a dark blue tracksuit. I was shackled and blindfolded and tied to a seat in an aeroplane for a 10-hour flight. When we got out of the plane, I could feel that the air was warm and dry. I was certainly not back in England. I soon discovered I was in Morocco, and interrogations began. The British knew what was happening because they supplied information about my life in the UK for the sessions. I sought asylum in Britain rather than America because it's known as the one country that has laws that it follows. To say that I was disappointed at this moment would be an understatement. I knew I was going to be tortured. After a few days, I was taken to a room. They asked me about my life, about Moroccan groups in Afghanistan. I said, I don't know anything about these groups. I know nothing about what you want. One night, 3 men came in with black masks and beat me. It seemed to go on for hours. The hands that were hitting me looked like the hands of someone who had worked as a mechanic or chopped with an axe. After they left, I lapsed to unconsciousness. When I woke, I saw that I'd vomited, pissed on myself. This circle of torture was to last another 18 months. I could not work out what they wanted to hear. One day my interrogation called 3 goons in. He stood behind them watching while they beat me. He was just standing there watching, smoking cigarettes like the Godfather in the film. He just gave an order to beat me. I guess this went on for a couple of his cigarettes. After a while I said to him, "I've got no problem saying whatever you want me to say." He was happy with that. But then it would get to me. He thought he was something doing all this. He thought he was something smart. I made a mistake. I said, "You're not intelligence. You're Moroccan. The British have intelligence, you don't." That night, he came back with 3 thugs who stripped me and tied me to the wall. I tried to put on a brave face as they took a scalpel to my right chest. It was only a small cut, maybe an inch. At first, I just screamed because the pain was just... I was shocked. I wasn't expecting. Then they cut my left chest. This time I didn't scream because I knew it was coming. The interrogator got agitated at this. So then, one of them took my penis in his hand and began to make cuts. He did it once, and they stood still for maybe a minute, watching my reaction. I was in agony, crying, trying desperately to suppress myself, but I was screaming. They must have done this 20 to 30 times in maybe 2 hours. There was blood all over. Once they began this, they would do it to me about once a month. There were even worse things. Too horrible to remember, let alone talk about. Finally, in January 2004, I was taken cuffed and blindfolded to a plane. I heard an American accent. I knew then I was being transferred back to the Americans. There was a white female with glasses who took pictures of my body. One of the soldiers held my penis, and she took digital photographs. This took a while, maybe half an hour. She was one of the few Americans who ever showed me any sympathy. When she saw my injuries I had, she just gasped and cried out, "Oh my God, look at that." I ended up in Kabul in a place called the Prison of Darkness and stayed there for 5 months. It was pitch black and no lights on in the rooms for most of the time. After a while I didn't feel I existed at all. Plenty of prisoners lost their minds. I could hear people knocking their heads against the walls and the doors, screaming their heads off. Well, what a time to believe in God. Without hope, I would certainly have been dead. In May, we were tied like hens going for slaughter, thrown into a helicopter and transferred to Bagram Air Base. I was then taken to Guantánamo Bay, Cuba in September 2004, where I was held for over 4.5 years before being released on February 23rd, 2009, and returned to the UK after charges were dropped against me. After all charges were dropped against me. I have been through an experience that I never thought to encounter in my darkest nightmares. Before this ordeal, torture was an abstract word to me. I could never have imagined that I would be its victim. Even now I don't feel that I'm free. I mean, it's been 7 years of, well, literally darkness that I've been through, that coming back to life has taken me some time. While I want to recover and put it all as far in my past as I can, I also know I have an obligation to the people who still remain in those torture chambers. My own despair was greatest when I thought that everybody had abandoned me. I have a duty to make sure that nobody else is forgotten. It is now about midnight at Guantánamo Bay, Cuba, where 171 men are being held without charge indefinitely.